Roki Sasaki today, when you just look at his outing, do you kind of focus on the positives of the 6 strikeouts and seeing the swing and miss and how the stuff was playing, or are the walks still proving to be a big challenge and a kind of a tough spot for him at the moment?
I think, yeah, I think it's a fair question. I think the thing that stands out is he limited damage. Once he exited the game, we were still in a good position to win the game. That was important. He didn't let it kind of spin out of control. And then looking at the lack of efficiency, I think that's something that, with the stuff that he had today, the 6 strikeouts and then the swing and miss and all that stuff, that sets up for going deeper in the game. And so I think that's something that I talked to him about and challenging him to, when you take the baseball, we're trying to go 5 innings or more. And so I think that's kind of the next progression for him to be consistently able to do that. But I do feel that the growth part of it is to, hang in there, make pitches when he needs to. That's important. And, he spread the walks out, I guess as well as you could to kind of limit damage. And that's something I was proud of in that sense.
But being in the zone more, is that more of an intent thing or is that a command thing?
I think it's a little combo. I think there's a little bit, and I think he, honestly, is some of the misses were just off, certainly with the fastball. So I think that maybe trying to be a little bit too fine. Obviously, no pitchers are trying to walk guys. But I think there might be a little bit of the intent about being a little too fine. That's kind of what I see, where I think before there were some bad misses and maybe a little too running from the strike zone, where I don't see that now.
When you see him in the same inning go from like sharp to then suddenly kind of wild for a couple batters, like what do you think is happening with him?
That's a good question. I don't know that answer. But what it does say is that when it gets really hot, gets stressful, then he finds a way to make pitches. So, how do you get ahead of that and not let an inning get built? That's what the great ones do. And I think that if you look back at today and even a lot of his outings, there's some bad walks in there. Guys that you have to go after and force them to put the ball in play. And, he's been victim to that. So once we can kind of get past that, then I think you'll see a lot more efficiency out of Roki.
When you're talking about the intent piece, is there anything that he can pull from his experience coming out of the pen when kind of that is more of the mindset that relievers are coming into, of just going at guys from the
Yeah. I think certainly. I think, that's kind of the mindset of a reliever, because you're going to go shorter. You're not going to throw as many pitches, so you can kind of empty the tank. And, with starters, they train for more pitches, more innings, and you have to, have in your head to still have that same mindset and trust that your work can, sustain 90 to 100 pitches with the same mindset and effort. And so that's something that, we got to get to that point.
Just some of the sloppiness on kind of all phases today, frustrating, felt like maybe gave some opportunities away to get back in the game after that.
I think so. That's, we had, I think, 10 walks. One was trying to, put Seager on base intentionally, but, 9 walks is a lot of walks. That's a lot of free bases. And then, Edgardo's got to make that play on the PFP, and we could have stayed in that game, and it could have been different. But I think, yeah, the 9 walks, 10 walks, whatever stands out, and, the PFP. But DeGrom was really good, and, it's hard to muster up a bunch of runs against that guy.
Call said that it wasn't a double steal call on that play with him and Otani. He's just been reading that in real time.
Yeah, I think, if we had to do it over again, he's got to be at second base. You've got arguably your hottest hitter, your hottest hitter up the plate with 2 outs, and, you just can't get caught up in a run down there. You can't do it.
Had it been a safe situation, would he have been available?
I don't know yet. I don't know. I'm gonna keep that one to myself.
Coach, talk about the continuous defensive play for Freeman on first base. He continues to make these really good plays.
He is. He is. That's something that, Freddie's always trying to get better. And, being hurt the last year and a half, he's really made a concerted effort to work on his lateral, agility and all that stuff. And he's playing the heck out of first base right now. He's doing a great job. And that's really a credit to him and his work.
What is the swing and miss from Tucker's or clinical burst? What is that?
Talked to Robert and said there's some things that he's seeing a little bit. He's getting out of his kind of zone, I see, and he's not a guy that typically chases down below, but he's chasing a lot more down below for me. This is not really a good example as far as the guy we faced today, but I think we've seen it enough as far as, the last week or whatever. There's been a lot more kind of chase down below is what I see. I see him as a high ball hitter, and so I guess a little bit just kind of getting him back into his hitting zone, and then cleaning up a couple of the mechanical things that Robert sees, and they've had conversations.
You guys feel like maybe trying to do too much early on this time of year? What do you sort of think fuels that sort of chase?
I think there's a little bit to that, and that's kind of what I see, and typically when guys chase, they're trying to do a little bit too much.
Do you think some of that comes, especially in like a spot like today, where we talked about him needing to protect Shohei and then walk him intentionally in front of him? Like, does that kind of lead into that in that kind of spot too?
I think maybe a little bit, but they did that. I forgot what team did that, and you got a base hit, Toronto. But he's going to get his opportunities, and even outside of situations like that, he's done a little bit more expanding than I think typical.
What did you see the matchup between Shohei and Jacob deGrom?
Like the first at bat, and then I think he took a walk. Yeah, I mean Jacob, when he's right, he's one of the best in baseball. So yeah, I thought Shohei took a couple good at bats today.
As you guys keep calibrating to the ABS stuff, is that a spot with Kim that's maybe
Yeah, that was not a good spot to challenge right there.